Vanakkam and good morning again. We have a panel with distinguished credentials, Collector Lakshmi Bhavya, Rohini Nilekani and Pratim Roy. I am Raman Sukumar. I spoke yesterday, but I'll probably repeat some of what I said yesterday. This is going to be a freewheeling kind of discussion. I don't know. I don't think I've ever done the role of a moderator ever before. So I panicked a bit this morning when I was told that I was supposed to moderate this conversation. But nevertheless, Johnny sent me a little note in which he says that each one of us is to speak for about 5 minutes initially about the defining moment about our engagement with the Nilgiris. And then we'll open it up to various discussion points that were summarized in the 2 slides. And perhaps then we'll get a view about what the panelists have to say on the matter. So I'll start with myself. For me, if I were to look back at what the defining moment was in terms of my engagement with the Nilgiris, it goes back to 20th of May, 1971. That's the first time that, or probably the first time that I ever came to the Nilgiris on a family holiday. And I was passing through Tappakadu, Mudumalai. There was a little bit of a late in the afternoon, and there was a crowd, along the Moya River, just opposite where you have the reception. And for me, everything starts with the elephant. I mean, all my endeavors in the last 50 years is, the elephant is the beginning and the end of all that I do. So a little crowd was there. So we got on from the car and then we inquired what had happened. They said an elephant called Devaki in the Mudumalai elephant camp had given birth to twin calves, Vijay and Sujay. I still remember getting down, going and seeing those twin calves, having an Agfa Click 3 camera, 25 rupees in those days. I don't know if people even remember that camera, taking a picture. It's not there with me anymore. And that is something that has remained in my memory, because we went to Ooty and the next morning the newspapers reports about how rare an event it was. Later on, when I did research on elephants, I realized that 1% of all elephant births, is essentially twins. Extremely rare event. And so that, I think, was my defining moment and possibly the trigger for my, getting into research on elephants, which included the Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve in the early 1980s, in which I worked in largely in Satyamangalam, but also coming to the Nilgiris and Mudumalai. And I worked on elephant-human interactions. I called it interactions in those days, not conflicts. Later on, the word conflict was invented, and I adopt that and I use that. So, and then all that I do has essentially been kind of guided by the long nose of an elephant. Now, yesterday, I mentioned a few points, and I'll just repeat that for the benefit of our panelists so that we can get the conversation going. I flagged, I think, 4 issues, and then I made a statement towards the very end. The first was that when you look at the ecology of the Nilgiris, the grasslands play a major role in the ecology of the Nilgiris. The grasslands are natural grasslands, natural to this area, set by climate, which was recognized by the Indian forester C.R. Ranganathan way back in 1938 in a classic paper in Indian Forester, but was negated by, or attempted to negate his views by N.L. Bohr, the European botanist, who said that all this area was forested and people came and people deforested the area. And way back in 1993, in another paper in Nature, I showed that grasslands have actually been even more extensive at a time in the past when people were not around. Okay, so the restoration of grasslands is, I think, crucial. 80 to 90% of the natural vegetation under the current climate is grasslands. We have planted that with wattle, and the wattle has expanded with global warming, and therefore restoration of grasslands, I think, is crucial, not only for the biodiversity of the grasslands, but also for the hydrology of the area. The hydrology crucially depends. Yesterday I mentioned hydrological studies by NCBS, Mahesh Shankaran is here. Today there'll be a session later. So I think, I'm going to flag 2 what I think are low-hanging fruits, because the government, the land is under the control of the government. See, what the grasslands I have seen in the early 80s and what I see today, the grasslands have shrunk simply because the loss of vegetation here has not been the sholas, it's been the grasslands. The second point is about, I made a pointed reference to tan tea. Not all the tea plantations here has been put up in the summary. It's a bit misleading, by the way. And the headlines in today's Times of India, I said, charity should begin at home. 1980s, when I helped design the Biosphere Reserve, I've seen, the last remnants of the tropical rainforest, the mid-elevation rainforest in Gudalur being cut and being destroyed for planting tea, or whatever the political compulsions of the day. And it's time to roll that back. Only the tan tea. Let us begin with land that is under the control of the government. I'm not talking about other estates which have been here for 100 years or whatever. Let's be very, very clear about it. Tan tea, because it's mid-elevation rainforest. And the reason is the mid-elevation rainforests are not there in Tamil Nadu today, in the Nilgiris. It's completely gone. I was looking for areas to set up permanent plots for long-term monitoring of biodiversity and climate change. They are just not there. So these are two things that the government can take up. And of course, you need to have rehabilitation of the tea workers and so on. That's up to them to work it out. The third point that I mentioned was about wildlife corridors. I mentioned yesterday a sensible and a scientific way of approaching wildlife corridors. Not expansive, scientific, the critical corridor lands, what we can do, a proper definition of this, where you can have a coexistence model in the larger landscape. But then the very, very critical lands, which are the chicken's neck or the bottleneck, if you cut that, then animals cannot get across. Those are the areas that we should focus on. And there is an initiative in the Tamil Nadu government where we are actually trying to do this through the elephant corridor, the thing that has been happening in the last year or so. The fourth aspect that I brought in, which is something I actually should owe to my mentor, Professor Madhav Gadgil, is the importance of traditional knowledge in the indigenous knowledge systems. He has always been a champion of the rights of tribal people. And today, in the modern context, the indigenous knowledge systems and how land management is carried out has become very, very important at the international level. And we are, we are part of IPCC, the governmental, the biodiversity panel, the IPBES, and so on and so forth. Therefore, we should also take into account the indigenous knowledge systems, how best we can use that for restoration of the ecology of the Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve. And the last point that I mentioned yesterday was that as a conservation paradigm, the Biosphere Reserve is the one that is the landscape approach, the Biosphere Reserve approach, where, it's a man and biosphere. By man, I mean, women are also there, obviously. Somehow UNESCO said man and biosphere reserve, maybe should change it. That humans and nature are, are integral parts. We have co-evolved together, and you can't separate the two everywhere. Some adjustments, coexistence has to be, obviously has to occur, but that's the future of conservation in the country, not go on increasing the network of protected areas, a fortress model of conservation. So these are the points that I made yesterday. And with this, I'll kind of open up and ask the collector about, what your views are. I mean, you can spend about 5 minutes in, talking about.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. It's indeed an honor to be here today. I would say that to start with the defining moment, it's not just one, so it's many. I think that's the case for anybody who's living in Nilgiris, because this place is unlike any other place. So I'm indeed very fortunate to be working and serving here for the people of Nilgiris and for Nilgiris itself. So when we go in the due course of work, like I go for a lot of inspections here and there to see how various schemes are being carried out. But the most defining moment is when I visit the tribal hamlets. It's not just one. Each visit to each of these hamlets, I'll be learning something new, something very shocking that, of course, this is how they live. Why didn't we think of it earlier? So this is something which I thought is not one, but defining moments across the length and breadth of the district. I've traveled extensively to most of the tribal hamlets. So it is also a realization that is how close and interlinked are their lives with the forests and water around them. The entire world depends on that. And the most important realization is also that if we want to make our forests stand tall, we have to listen to the voices of those people who live with them. So that is one thing very important, which I realize is the most defining moment. And coming to in general conservation efforts, with my limited experience working here in Nilgiris, I've realized it's not about saving one particular species or one particular environment. It is about people and ecosystems. So no conservation effort is fruitful or successful if we don't involve people. And I also strongly believe that conservation is not something you can impose. It's not something you can forcefully make people do. It is to be lived. Like people who are living have to take care of their environment by their own. So that is where I strongly feel we are lacking. Like yesterday's Madam Jane Goodall's message clearly conveyed that we have to first understand and then act and then try to spread what we know. So I think the understanding part, most of it here in and around Nilgiris, for people who are living in Nilgiris, the understanding part is already there. It is now about taking action on it and how do we involve communities. I think that is the biggest hurdle, because when I go and say don't cut a tree here, it will be taken as something I'm imposing on that particular individual in his own property. So it is not something that I should go and tell. I think it should come from within the people. That is one of the core problematic areas where we have to still work for harder to bring that sense of ownership of community. And I look forward for discussing on other things. But I think this is my introduction. Thank you.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. I'm so happy to be here. Romba Santosham, Nandri Sukumar for having me here, all of you. Defining moment of the Nilgiris. More than 20 years ago, my husband Nandan and I walked into a property not very far from here in Kunur, and we crossed the gate and I saw one tree. That was enough for me. And this tree is not even a native tree. I've said this before. It's a eucalyptus blue gum, a huge 200-year-old eucalyptus blue gum tree, which I saw at the gate, and I fell in love. I didn't see the house. I told Nandan we should buy this place. And we are very lucky to have a second home called Gables in Kunur. So it was a tree first that made me fall in love with the Nilgiris. And then what can I say? Over 20 years, I've fallen in love with every grassland, every tea estate also, all the people, all the trees, all the animals. And I've had marvelous experiences in nature. And I have a very deep and strong commitment for the last 20 years to support as much of conservation and revitalization as I possibly can. So we have a strong commitment. And I want to say thank you for welcoming this invasive species to the district of the Nilgiris. And we should be kind to all guests that come, because guests become locals after some time. And it is always an invitation. More and more people will come to this beautiful district. You can't stop people. But it's an invitation. It can be an opportunity that whoever comes and lives here, buys land here, settles here, we can all become trustees of this marvelous biosphere. So I see that as a great opportunity. And certainly we will all work towards it with you. Recently, as you know, I was very proud to be able to produce a film on the Nilgiris. How many of you have seen A Shared Wilderness? Yay, thank you so much. It was one of the best experiences of my life, thanks to the Fellis team. I think Rohan is here, a few other people may be here. And the reason we chose this title, I suddenly came across the idea that we should call it a shared wilderness, because that is truly what the Nilgiris Biosphere is. It is a shared wilderness with man, animals, flora and fauna. We are also part of the same world. And we should... Recently, I've been very much influenced by a biologist from York University called Chris Thomas. And I urge you all to read his book, Inheritors of the Earth, and look at his Long Now Foundation talk on the same subject. He is truly an ecological optimist. And what he is sharing with us with a lot of data is that, yes, we are very much in this Anthropocene, which is the human era. There has been a lot of extinction of many species. But extinction and regeneration has happened ever since life came onto this planet, and this kind of change will keep happening. We are part of this change. We have created some of this change, but as we are changing the environment, the built landscapes of this planet, we are also creating new ecological niches for species to move in. Change is happening under our noses. Not all of it is bad, some of it is very good. Species are moving across the world, plants and animals. And we have to understand that there is no perfect point in the past to go back to. We are part of this change of this beautiful earth planet of ours, and we have to think carefully, how are we going to keep change will keep happening. You know, when I came 20 years ago, or in the last 40 years that I've been interested in environmental issues, I also first used to say, oh my God, everything is bad. Look at the lantana, look at the Senna spectabilis. I learned many names of many invasive species, which we only brought here. We means human beings. And now we are saying we'll get rid of them. It's an impossibility. You cannot get rid of all the lantana and the senna. You can get rid of it, Tarsh, in parts of the place, I'm sure, but there is no hope to return everything. So therefore, we need to do much more research to understand new ecosystem benefits from new species that are coming in. Species will intermingle, new species will form. But we need not be afraid. You know, if you're afraid and depressed, you can't really do right action. Hope is my new religion. I've decided to be an ecological optimist, and we have to work towards restoring a good balance as much as we know how to. We should never stop doing that, but we should stop being in despair. I think a lot more research is needed. We all need to talk. We need to respect old knowledge, as Sukumar said. Pratim is going to speak now. Madam Lakshmi has already said about how much, and so beautifully she spoke. It is up to us. It is up to all of us. The young people in the audience at the back, this is your future. Get involved, but first understand what is happening. Look from an optimistic lens. Look ahead with hope, because hope allows you to wake up every morning and do the right action. So the last thing I would say is, tea estates are a large part of the Nilgiris. Yes, they are being cut up. But you know, nobody's planting one more tea bush. Okay, there's too much tea already. So the good news is nobody's going to cut down any more forests to plant tree. There will be agriculture. There will be new homes. But there is an opportunity to frame good policy, to join the government, the sarkar, in creating better and better policies, to invite those who come here, those who are newly farming, creating exotic produce. Who's eating the exotic produce? All of us only. So is there a better way to produce the produce that we want to eat? I think this should be an ongoing conversation without hostility. I think there is tremendous opportunity to restore land with Tanti. There's tremendous opportunity to create necessary animal corridors. There's a marvelous opportunity on tea estates to restore biodiversity. We are trying that in our own way. And I'll tell you, in the last 20 years that I have been here, I've seen more animals now than I used to see before. The Nilgiri martins are coming back. Of course, I still have to see one. If anyone knows where they are, please let me know. I'll come quietly and see them. And there is going to be rising human-animal conflict. Let's be prepared for it. Let's learn how to avoid and reduce this conflict. As you all know, a bear entered my house. I'm very glad I wasn't there. But then I had to take some measures to prevent bears from entering my home. I'm quite happy to have them outside my home. Similarly with elephant Sukumar, very happy to have them outside. But animals, you do not want wild animals inside your home. So how are we going to protect ourselves while respecting that they need their space? These are exciting journeys for humans to embark on, especially here in our most beloved Nilgiri Biosphere. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the day and this conversation. But I'm saying to the young people back there, look ahead with hope so that we can all together revitalize this beloved biosphere. Thank you, Nandri.
Thank you for inviting me. I'll tell you a story, because defining moments, there are several, like Collector Madam has just said, and Rohini said it so beautifully. I'll tell you a story about my favorite subject. It's bees. Yeah. So in the bee world, what happens every evening, that there is something called yellow rain. And what is yellow rain? Yellow rain is when the bees work all day, in the evening, you'll see a crescendo of sounds going up. Yeah, you stand under any canopy or under any cliffs, anywhere, especially wild bees. What they do is they defecate in mass to reduce the temperature of their body. Because when they have collected pollen and nectar and they've worked all day, and a bee works almost around the clock, yeah? So in the evening, just before sunset, there is a beautiful sound in the forest. And then if you go into the forest floor, you'll see a carpet of yellow drops. And this is called yellow rain. And this is the way they control their body temperature so beautifully with nature every day. Why I'm telling you this story is that this story I heard first in Malaysia. I went on a bees and environment conference, and we went into the jungles of Kedah, beautiful big bee trees. And I saw this, and I came back to the Nilgiris, and with my Kurumbas, I went and asked them, have you heard about this phenomena where the bees drop these things and all that? They looked at each other. He said, come, we'll show you. So they showed me exactly what I had seen in Malaysian forests, here in the Nilgiris, in the Kotagiri area. So I said, why did you tell me about this before? So he said, you didn't ask us. So this was a defining moment that with Adivasis over the last 32 years of our work in Keystone, that it's always a key which opens the right door. And they are not like Google, that they keep on sort of telling you unnecessary information. You have to ask the right question and they'll open the right door for you. And that's the magic of the Nilgiris. In any sphere that you take, I'm talking about bees. Sukumar so beautifully talked about the elephant calves. So through the bees, we looked at the entire Nilgiris and we fell in love with this place. The other really defining moment for me, if I look at the last 32 years, is meeting BJ, who's just sitting in front. BJ was the second person whom we met. We call him BJ, but he's BJ Krishnan. And he met us. He did not know who we were. We were three of us, Sneha, Matthew, and me. We came from Delhi. We're not from this place. Invasives again. A Bengali gentleman, yeah. A UP girl, another UP man, completely mixed from all over the country. So we met Reverend Mali, who was a cultural anthropologist, and he took us to BJ Krishnan. BJ Krishnan, first of all, you see the interesting part of people in the Nilgiris, he opened the doors, these two gentlemen opened the doors to us in an amazing way. And fast forwarding that process to 2010, one of the biggest movements in the Nilgiris was the Save Western Ghats movement, where BJ and a lot of people, Siddharth was a small kid, and yes, BJ, thank you. They walked for 100 days from Kanyakumari, and a group walked from all the way from Gujarat, all the way, and met in the center of the Western Ghats, which is Goa. 100 days. The BBC termed this as the biggest environmental movement in the country. And this was to save the Western Ghats. It was known as the Save Western Ghats movement. So many people's lives changed. We were just getting to know BJ, and he saw our work on wetlands. He saw our work that we do. And 2010 in Goa, we had to revive this movement where he said, let's have this gathering in Kotagiri. 29 and 2010, we had this gathering. You would think, what's the defining moment of that? But that changed the whole history. And Sukumar is there. He is part of the panel. BJ is also part of the panel. We convinced Jairam Ramesh, who was the environment minister then, a very active political leader today. We convinced him that he should come to the Nilgiris. He said, why? We have people from NCF also. Divya and Raman are sitting there. They will know about it. So I said, you will not get a chance to see more than 100 groups of environmental organizations and social organizations in one place, and how we want to save the Western Ghats, which is a global biodiversity hotspot. So I thought he says yes to everything, and somehow we had really clicked. He said, yeah, I'll definitely come. I followed it up with another meeting. I said, I promised you I'll come. Everybody from Delhi, Chennai, Coimbatore, they were shocked to have a union minister come and stay in Kotagiri. Overnight he stayed in Kotagiri. Yeah. It was not absolutely accepted protocol. There's no security. Collector here was going mad. I said, this is his choice. I can't do anything. He wants to live in Kotagiri and he wants to be there. The next day he saw the whole of Keystone, and then he met each and every environmental groups who had a passionate story to tell about the mining issue, about the displacement issue, about the forest issue, about the water issue, about indigenous communities. He was completely moved. And we had told him that he cannot come to the stage. He said, you will sit like Benno and BJ are sitting there. He said, you will sit and listen to us, and then you'll respond. When he came to the stage, believe me, his voice was cracking. He was moved. He had not seen something like this before. And he was on the phone to Delhi to his officers to say, and he went out and said to the reporters, and if you Google it, you will see, he first declared a Western Ghats Ecology Authority. And that his babus in Delhi didn't allow him. They said, 6 states will have litigations against you. You'll have a problem. Yeah. There are 53 districts. Let's set up a committee. He said committee is a very bad word. Moment you set up a committee, madam, nothing happens after that. You know it very well. So he set up a Western Ghats Ecology Expert Panel. BJ Krishnan was an architect in that panel. Professor Madhav Gadgil was the chairman. Dr. Sukumar was also part of the panel. We were all there with this panel, and they went out and declared the entire Western Ghats as ecologically sensitive area. Then politics took over. You had Jayanti Natarajan, then you have Kasturi Rangan committee. They diluted that, but at least that was the first defining moment that we made practice and policy, and we made big people move in this. So how a bee story can lead to this was one of my defining moments here. Thank you.
I'm glad that we have a group of optimists here. Okay, all of us are optimists. I'm also an optimist. Otherwise, at this age, I wouldn't be sitting here and sort of discussing all this. I would have sort of retired for by now completely, which I haven't. Now, I'm glad that you brought up the Pratim, that you brought up the Western Ghats Expert Ecology Panel, because I was very much a part of the formation of the panel and all of that and the proceedings. And I'm the only one who has the, I don't know what to say, the label to give, also in the third panel now, which is kind of looking at the Kasturi Rangan report, the response of the various states, the resistance from various states. What are all the real issues that arguments that people have put? Yesterday, I brought up some of those issues. Certain states have completely rejected the concept of ESA, and why so? Tamil Nadu we have made much more progress with Tamil Nadu. In fact, I was in a meeting with our committee with one of your predecessors last year, actually, on this issue and so on. But to me, I'll not get into that line right now. I'm going to sort of think ahead about India's economic aspirations. Okay, now our economic aspirations we are a low to middle income level country, and our goals are now set to becoming a developed country. Whether that will happen or not, I can't say. I'm not an economist, but almost certainly India will break into the ranks of the mid to high level income countries in a couple of decades from now, or whatever. I don't want to give it here any time period. Now, when you look at the fact that the Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve as a concept, which I said is well suited to our national circumstances. See, when you really look at the Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve, we are done pretty well in many ways. we still have pretty much a fairly intact biological diversity, as it were. I mean, I don't know of any extinctions. My colleagues, ecologists who are here may want to correct me. I don't know if any birds have become extinct, Robin, or frogs or whatever. I'm not very sure. I don't think anything has. We still have the sholas. We still have grasslands. We still have the the lowland evergreen forests. We still have the tropical dry thorn forests, the deciduous forests. We still have booming large populations of the mammals. We still have the indigenous communities. All the communities are still around in the Nilgiris. The Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve. The Biosphere Reserve is a broader thing than just Tamil Nadu. But on the other hand, we are largely discussing Tamil Nadu today. So we have done pretty well overall. And in conservation overall in the country, given our national circumstances, our forest cover went down to only about 20% or 15% or whatever. In Switzerland, it went down to 3%, and then it was rebuilt afterwards. So we have not done that bad, given the enormous human pressures that we have. The new challenge will be, how are you going to retain this biological diversity? How are you going to maintain ecological functions, ecosystem services of our natural areas and so on, amidst in the next few decades, when we can expect that the government of the day, whichever government it is going to, aspirations are that you grow at 7%, 8%, 9% or whatever. That is one point. And the second is that you can't leave behind any part of the country. We are a democratic country. You can't say Nilgiri district, now your economic growth rate is going to be 0. And then, somewhere else in Coimbatore, it's going to be 15%, and that will compensate for this. It's not going to happen. The people of the Nilgiris are not going to accept it. So amidst this, I would actually like to have your views about how you think the real challenge is going to be the, maintain that there is an economic growth tangible, for the people of this district. At the same time, that we preserve the ecology. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I'm so glad you brought this topic up because I didn't want to be the only one who is talking about development in Nilgiriscapes conference. It is actually a very tight rope, especially for the administration. On one side, we have to balance all the ecological restoration needs, and on the other side, we also have to see about the livelihood of the people who live here in Nilgiris. As many of you already know, we are seeing a lot of mass migration out of Nilgiris by the people who actually belong to Nilgiris in search of better economic opportunities, because as you already know, there's so many restrictions in Nilgiris, like we can't have industries, we have a lot of restrictions on various other commercial activities that take place in Nilgiris. So that is concerning to some extent, because they also look for commercializing the land, because that's one way where they can get the financial support to support their new life after moving elsewhere, be it Coimbatore or abroad or anywhere else. So when this commercialization of land happens, and it doesn't mean that the land is going to remain the same. I'm now not very against tea estates also. They have done their part. But what I'm trying to say is, after you sell the land, it is up to the new owner to do whatever they want with the land. So that they may build houses, they may build new buildings will turn up. So the concrete footprint again will increase. So there's so many ways we have constraints on how we balance all of this. Because I'm very worried that at one point of time, when you look out of your balcony, there won't be any more views in Nilgiris. There'll be only buildings. That's a very concerning aspect for me. And for the last 1 year, I've gained a lot of enemies on that line, because I don't give building plan approvals easily. And that's how people fight with me also, why I'm not giving that easily to us. And it is not for any other thing, but it is for the lack of better planning. Because out of the 100% area of the Nilgiris district, only 3% is planned area. So 97% of the district, we don't have a plan. So what happens is, what is a plan and non-planned area? So planned area is basically where you will be, where there's a master plan, where they say, okay, this is an agricultural zone, this is a wooded zone or a forest zone, this is a residential zone, there's a multi-purpose zone. So this kind of planning. by various urban planners and professionals in this aspect. They give this. So in the 3% area, we can actually control and say, okay, this is a wooded area, or you're too close to a forest. You can't build, big buildings and whatever construction. So this is what you can do. But the remaining 97% area, because it's mostly under tea cultivation or agriculture, people tend to build. So this is something which we are actively looking forward to. In the last 1 year, with Keystone and many other partners, we are looking forward to make a collaborative approach. And that is one of the, so when they have approached me about Tarun sir and others, when they've approached about the Nilgiris Cape conference also, the first thing I've asked them is, what can I get out of it? Everyone will speak, everyone will talk, but are there any actionable outcomes that I can get out of it? Because that is what I'm looking forward to. It need not be a very big plan. And I'm also not a fan of big plans. I understand the entire Western Ghats is one, but then the plan, the book itself, I've got the copies of it. So they're like this thick and there are like 10 of them. So I prefer something which we can implement immediately in our own neighborhood. Like if I need not do it for the entire Nilgiris district as well. This planning can be done. We can select a few zones, like a few multiple zones across the district, which we can develop into a model village or a model town, whatever is it. So I think planning should start at lower levels where we can implement immediately, because the bigger plans, of course, you need to have the bigger picture, but for that to trickle down to everyday living, it will take so much time and so many changes. By the time we get to it, the original bigger picture will actually change. As ma'am said, we have to evolve with a lot of changes that are coming. So that is one thing which is very concerning. And the second thing where we would require help is about improving the livelihood opportunities for people who chose to live in Nilgiris despite of so much attraction, so many attractive options elsewhere. There are people, you won't believe, when I meet some of the tribal children or tribal students who've completed the engineering, tried working elsewhere, but couldn't be away from home, came back here. And he now regularly takes his buffaloes out. Tarun sir knows. So there are people like this, inspiring stories across communities, because anybody who lives in Nilgiris know that there is no better place they can call home. That I truly agree. I've been here only a year. Before that, I've come as a tourist, same like sir. And so that is one thing. So how do we generate opportunities for them? So I think this conference is a very good platform where we can involve them in all the efforts that we are speaking right now, like whether Pratim sir is helping with the bee, or like the honey gathering or the honey marketing. And similarly, all the conservation efforts that we are efforts that we take or we plan to take, I think we have to involve these communities so that they'll get some purpose as well as a reason to live here in Nilgiris. And that is what I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam. Rohini, your views on how
So,
basically economic growth, but
Yeah.
maintain the
so
ecology.
wonderfully said, Madam. It's great to meet people from the government who are open to listening and implementing with the community. So I'm not an expert, but it's one thing is very clear from all the work that I've been very privileged to support over the last few years. Development will happen. People want to come here. People who are here want to have a better life. But there's, if we keep the conversations going, and Keystone will be a part of it, IIHS will be a part of it, of course, NCF, many of the other ATRI, all the organizations are also represented here. I don't see why we cannot actually use the opportunity to create we want to develop, people want development, we cannot escape that. But what kind of development? We've already seen that the carrying capacity, for example, just the vehicles that come in, and how all of us hate to see the tourists coming up. Uh, Otherwise, we're okay because they bring in some, and we want tourists to come in to improve the no, to improve the livelihood opportunities of the people who are here, in even if it is in bursts. But can we regulate it a little better together? Can we come up with, agriculture is going to grow? Is there a better way to increase the productivity and the income of the farmers here? there are many opportunities like that to create nature-based, nature-friendly livelihood opportunities, to create much better zoning. So that yes, there'll be new houses, there'll be new buildings, but like they do in Europe, surely we can come up with some uh, functional aesthetic of how you can grow this built human infrastructure. So I'm looking forward to supporting this dialogue so that the Nilgiri Biosphere, frankly, there's a mayor of Shimla here. There's a lot to learn from how not to develop the hillsides from North India. So we need not to make those mistakes here. So fingers crossed, we'll all be part of this.
Pratim, yeah, you have been involved with local communities, quite a lot. And I'm just wondering, how do you scale it up? How do you scale? The problem, in conservation in general is scaling up. A little model that we develop works. Yeah. Rohini,
Thank you for, very quickly, thank you for mentioning scale. Madam, you also talked about creating a model village. One thing we have learned, Nandan and I are very involved in what is now called strategic philanthropy, where you're looking at moving systems, and it's not at all easy. It takes decades. But one thing we have learned is that when you're thinking about scale, you can't say, I'll create one model and then scale it up. From the beginning, you have to understand that you cannot just scale what works in one place. You have to design for what will work at scale. And once you start thinking, unpacking, unbundling about what will work at scale, then even if you can't do the whole biosphere at one stretch and you're doing just a small piece, what you're doing will become easily replicable, because otherwise all pilots succeed and all scale fails. So the key when we are thinking about the whole biosphere is to design for what works at scale and then work at the scale that you're capable of.
Thank you. Pratim, yeah.
I would say that, for the Nilgiris, we have to definitely think in terms of what kind of a mountain enterprise we are talking about. Lot of the scaling, lot of the entrepreneurial activities or entrepreneurial ideas comes from planners and finance people who sit in Chennai, unfortunately. And this we have been talking to many, many collectors. We had a exercise with a collector here, where we had something called the District Environmental Governance Initiative. There are 20 departments in the district. How does each department, what kind of budgets they have, and how are they tuned in terms of environment? For a lot of people, environment means on World Environment Day, go and plant trees. But what does it mean in terms of water? What does it mean in terms of natural resources? What does it mean in terms of communities who are dependent on that? So that needs a real shift. So in our practical experiments and pilots that we have done in Last Forest or Adimalai, the two profit-making companies in our gambit, in our group, I would say that there is potential to scale. But then what happens is, if you look at potential to scale, then you cannot be talking to the same set of people that you're dealing in the district. Then you have to move out to another bigger cities. Then a lot of your objectives, why you've started in the first place, has to change. So you have to keep the focus. Are you looking at indigenous and local communities and marginalized communities, their livelihoods to go up at a contextual level? Then this is the kind of operation. For example, if somebody says that, Nilgiris requires a huge mall here, I don't think so. You want a good mall, you go to Coimbatore. It's just 2.5 hours away. Yeah. But then there are people who say, yeah, but we need this also. I'm not saying that Nilgiris people should just live in absolute, low infrastructure kind of space. No, not at all. But for any business or enterprise or economic activity, the natural resource base, the context of the local communities, the context of the indigenous communities, that has to be completely taken into account, because then you can definitely start a business and make it run in Bangalore or Delhi or even abroad in a huge way and pump that money back into this place. But that is not the objectives that will work. Yeah.
Thank you, Pratim. Yeah, I mean, it's good that you brought up this issue of infrastructure, because in the Western Ghats, the new ESA committee, we had actually had requests from various states on this particular issue. It's not practical to See, the ESA, let me just explain. I mean, this is an opportunity so that people understand what it's all about, or what it's supposed to be. Let me put it that way. The eco-sensitive area notification is only about regulating or actually banning. You know, if you talk about a ban, there's a ban on commercial mining. There's no ban on minor minerals for bona fide local use and so on. That is it. Okay. The second is there's a ban on thermal power plants, and thermal power plants are not relevant to the Western Ghats anymore. That's what I understand. There are no more thermal power plants that are being planned or going to come up. Although there was something planned near Bandipur, I don't think that even that's been abandoned. The third category was slightly more tricky, and that was, of course, mining is an issue in major minerals, is an issue in Maharashtra. It's an issue in Karnataka, and we are dealing with it, in a certain way. A little bit of give and take here and there, and so on. So in certain areas, okay, you can; other areas you cannot. Based on some rationales, ecological, scientific rationale. That's what we are converging towards. The third, which is actually probably very relevant to the Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve, is the red category industry. Red category industry has a huge list out there. So it includes, dairy chilling. It includes sewage treatment plants. It includes any construction about 20,000 square meters, and so on and so forth. A huge swath. So there are certain categories in which our committee has been inclined to say that we'll give relaxation. So, for instance, if you have a lot of sewage being generated in Ooty, it doesn't make sense to say you can't put up a sewage treatment plant. It's totally, contradictory to that. So we want a clean environment, and therefore we want that. So we say no. From the red category industry, we say we delete this. And then we delete dairying, for instance. If there's a lot of buffalo or whatever, or cattle or whatever that people are doing, you can't say that you can't have milk chilling activities or whatever here. So similarly, in the case of hospitals was one thing that came up. Just because you are sitting up in the Nilgiris, you can't, if you have a heart attack, you can't go down to Coimbatore 2.5 hours or whatever, and get your treatment. You need to have a hospitals. So for hospitals, with proper safeguards in terms of biomedical waste and disposals and so on, so we said we are giving relaxations. So that way we have been able to bring around a lot of the states that have made objections. So at the end of the day, conservation, there's a certain amount of give and take, and therefore this is something that we are compromising with. So that's the kind of approach that we are taking. Now I am going to ask the collector about if I don't know, you must have certainly heard about the concept of the eco-sensitive area. Do you think there is anything in particular about it that seems not practical, difficult to implement, or any other suggestion that you will actually like to make in that? Because I think it's kind of integral, because it started in 2011, and so far, there's not a single state has been declared. We are very close to declaring it for Gujarat. Gujarat is a very small area of the Western Ghats. Goa, we are pretty much very close to that, and so on. But other states, we have challenges. So is there anything specific that you would like to comment on the ESA issue?
Thank you, sir. Before the ESA in a bigger picture, sir, I would just want to talk about something that we have done for the first time, not in Tamil Nadu, but in the entire country. I don't know if this was done elsewhere. That is notifying a dedicated elephant corridor. I'm not sure if it was done in any other place. But then, sir, is it actually so impactful on the ground? I have certain queries on this, because number one, the moment we are declaring such areas or corridors, it is immediately not trusted by the locals who live there, because we do these kind of exercises without much stakeholder discussions, is what I personally believe. If we take the locals into the discussions, or before declaring certain, take their whatever apprehensions they have, if they are cleared, I think we would get more ground level support while implementing such policies or corridors. Because at the end of the day, once it's notified, it is the administration's headache to get that on field. So that is when we face so many difficulties, because court judgments or any of such policy notes or conferences where they suggest such things, there's so many things that get missed, because it is people's life that gets impacted on a day-to-day basis. though the elephant corridor has nothing to do with displacement or any such kind of activities that would ensue, but still it is something which scares the people. We recently we wanted to have a stakeholder consultation with all the people for declaring an eco-sensitive zone outside Mudumalai Tiger Reserve, which we have to do it. For declaring the eco-sensitive zone, we need to have stakeholder consultation. They boycotted the consultation because they were so scared, and they gave news to reporters that we are notifying something. Then I had to clear, it was notified in 2011 itself. I'm not notifying anything new, but to take your apprehensions across, like to even convey that these are what the locals want to express, we need to have these kind of stakeholder discussions. So that is one major thing, I think, that we should involve the locals whose livelihood or any aspect of their life will be affected by this, because we sitting here and saying, no, this is the corridor, you're not supposed to live there, is not going to work unless they do something by that.
I'll just make a brief comment. Yeah. I can probably talk for 2 hours on this issue, but I will not. I'll just take 2 minutes, just make some brief observations. And that is that I said this very briefly, maybe in the beginning or yesterday I mentioned this. The whole issue of the corridor, and I'll call it more broadly wildlife corridors, not just elephant. Tigers use it, or other species also benefit from it. I was one of the first people to actually identify and define corridors, in the southern Indian landscapes, way back in the early 1980s. And some of those I mentioned yesterday, we have managed to strengthen it in Karnataka and Kerala with the help of NGOs and some funding and so on. Now, coming to this, I fully agree with your sentiments. The new definition that some of us are trying to give to this is that you have a landscape, and we are trying to redefine the way that redefine the whole concept of the corridor. What is the purpose of a corridor? The purpose of a corridor is that an animal that starts from that end, okay, I'm entering from there and I'm sort of exiting through this and I'm going there, and this space is not available or whatever for some particular reason, that's animal or that individual or that species should be able to get across, essentially. Now, if you ask me in Sigur, if you're talking specifically about Sigur, all animals are going through. Everything is going through. Nothing is actually being stopped. The second point is that whole landscape, there is a historical mosaic of human settlements that are several hundred years old. Okay, so the new definition that we are trying to give is that is a landscape linkage zone between the Western Ghats and the Eastern Ghats. And within that, what we are saying is that Tarsh has been very much a part of this. Bhumi is here. He's been a part of this, discussion with the Tamil Nadu Forest Department, and we are part of those committees and so on. That within that landscape, you identify what are called critical lands, very critical lands. For instance, if that land is completely shut off, or some buildings come, or some big development comes, then the link is completely shut. You shut these doors here, then it goes. Okay. Now, the entire thing is not a corridor. This entire hall is not a corridor. It is that given passage through which it's going. Okay. So those critical lands are usually much smaller in extent. That's where the focus needs to be. How do we strengthen it, essentially? And then there are something called trek paths. I might as well expand upon this and mention it, because if you take, hilly areas, you will find winding roads. Now the roads are being expanded. I'm talking not about India, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, but also about Meghalaya. You go to the northeast, you go to all these developments that are taking place in other countries too. Now there's more and more cutting happening, with the result that animals are not able to come down those paths and cross anymore, because then you get a steep cut and they can't jump, across or whatever. So those are the areas where we need a special protection for maybe 100 meters. So they're called elephant trek paths. So this is a document that's been put out in the public domain for comments and so on, where a new kind of a conceptual framework has been given. You have a coexistence zone across the landscape linkage zone. It could be 5 kilometers across, 10 kilometers across, doesn't matter. Within that, the real critical, whatever is really needed, essential, where some action has to be taken. And in Karnataka and Kerala, we have persuaded people that, these lands are 10 acres, 20 acres. That's about it. Not hundreds and thousands of acres. I think it's possible, but I fully agree with you. Take into conference local people. People are today afraid. ESA, now that I mentioned about ESA, I'll just share one anecdote in a rather humorous vein. In the state of Kerala, we were told that we don't want our village to be part of the ESA. What's the reason? The reason is that no family from another village will give their girl in marriage to a boy from this village, because they feel that this is economic doom once a village is declared as a ESA. And these are real fears that people have got. And I'm not joking. These are actual fears that people have expressed to us when we were there. So the problem is that conservation narratives have to be acceptable to people, and should not reasonable constraint and regulation, but not overly so. That's it. Rohini, yeah, sorry.
Since it's a conversation, just jump in, anybody. But so two things here that, we have to recreate a new culture of coexistence, because we have forgotten something. Urban people, where do they think of elephants? We don't think of elephants. So reminding people in new ways why we need elephants at all. I think it's very important to tell that story again, afresh, anew, in today's language, to people, especially younger people, so that already in your mind you have a mental model that we have to live with the wild. Somehow we have to find development patterns with wilderness around us, shared wildernesses. I think it's important for those who are storytellers here to keep telling those stories again. Less than 15 days ago in Zimbabwe, I was on foot and got charged by an African bull elephant, not further than where that camera is. So otherwise, this becomes a very elite discussion. No, I'm sitting in my nicely protected house, and it's the people on the ground who have to face elephants, tigers, and leopards, or whatever, wild dogs, or whatever. Many animals are there that can be threatening. So that conversation has to begin again, anew, with respect for people who are afraid that we cannot live with wildlife. Because of course we can live with wildlife. We have been living with wildlife for hundreds of thousands of years, humans in all forms. But we have to start that conversation again. And what you're saying is right. It has to be the minimal disturbance to human beings, and that's possible, please.
Mia, I just want to add something. So, if we in general analyze the interactions, human wildlife interactions or conflicts, or the injuries that followed or deaths of humans that followed, maximum happens in areas where the people are not tribals. This is one eye-opening realization we had, because in one of the hamlets when I went, I asked them, they have to trek on foot and go walk for 4 kilometers to reach the hamlet. There's no other way. We went there to see if we can put a road, but it is technically not possible because of the rocky surface, and then it's not possible. Maximum we could do a footpath, but not a road on which they could traverse. So when I asked them, how do you go in the night to your hamlet back, or how do you, if you have any kind of emergency, how do you do? And were there any such incidents with wildlife? They said, I was talking to an elderly woman. She prayed to God in front of me, and she told, I just prayed to the elephants. Till now, we don't have any such things in our hamlet. I asked, how do you manage? They said, it's a very small, sensible decision that they take. So the town is at the higher altitude, and the hamlet is somewhere where you have to trek down and go inside the forest and go. So she said, if it gets dark and we are still stuck doing some chores or whatever activities we have in the town, we stay back in the town. That was her solution. Like, we don't walk in the night. We stay back in the town. And I asked, where do you stay? They said there's a tea estate there. They have quarters. So we have friends. We stay back there. Next day morning, they call below on the mobile. Is the path clear? Someone from the hamlet says, yeah, I just went in the morning for a walk in the forest to do my course. And then I saw it's clear, you can come. And that's when they come. It is as simple as that. It is not a big... Yeah.
No, so
these are the kind of solutions which is very common, practical and avoid.
And similarly now, using technology. I'm all for using technology to reduce human wildlife conflict. We have to use cameras. We have to, like NCF has done in Valparai and y'all have done here. We have to be able to alert people about big animal movement. And it's as simple as that. And that's how we learn a new culture of coexistence. Very quickly, we also have to think, is it possible to look at forms of payment for ecosystem services, where we are telling people that you cannot develop here? then you are doing us a favor. All of us, everyone lives downstream of something else. Can we then support those so that you can marry into that village, because there'll be PES also coming your way. And today you can do direct benefit transfers in a second, the government can do. So thinking through a new model of payment for ecosystem.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. I think this PS idea is very, very important for Nilgiris, especially the upper area which has all the water. Yeah. All the water and everything, and it flows down. So a lot of tea estates in the upper areas or the vegetable intensive areas which use a lot of fertilizers and chemical inputs, they find their ways down to drinking water sources for tribal communities in downstream, and that's the water they drink. So that needs to change a lot. The other thing is, if you look at Nilgiris, the basket of vegetables that is grown here, but we don't have a sufficient market. All these vehicles that keep going down to Metupalayam to sell their vehicle, produce and come back. First of all, the food miles that every truck of carrot or every vehicle of cabbage goes up and down, it's enormous. Somewhere we need to be very creative as to how we can sort of have attractive prices or attractive demand up in the hills for people, not this traditional trade routes that has existed for a long time. That needs to be questioned. In the case of ESA, I would say that needs to be a lot demystified still for the local people. ESA has created more confusion than clarity. This was necessary. The entire WGP and all that was absolutely necessary, but it has not percolated down to really local people and to understand, what does it mean? It should be seen as a way that it's securing their livelihoods, in terms of making it fear that it's an alarm and it's a danger to them. ESA is considered to be a danger. It's almost like an ED or a CBI raid kind of thing that ESA has come. So that needs to be thoroughly changed. Yeah.
Thank you, Pratim. I think we are kind of running out of time. I think we have about a minute or so. I think I agree with you that we need to start some of these conversations again, especially conflict, for instance. The whole question of payment for ecosystem services, how the administration can play a more positive role in all of this. Maybe getting the message across to the people that, we're not going to carry a stick and then, beat you on the head or whatever once you have an ESA. But sometimes, the fears are real because there is interpretation, misinterpretation of the provisions of the ESA and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, I think, as I said in the beginning, we have still a substantial part of the biodiversity, the natural ecosystems, and all of it in the Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve still there, out there. I think we have the basic foundations on which we can actually build, the resilience of our systems. And we didn't mention about climate change, which at the very end I should say that I'll just make Pranay made a wonderful presentation yesterday on monsoon and all of that. I've been following Indian monsoon models for more than 30 years now, and it's all over the place for various reasons. So one of the most challenging systems to actually model the South Asian monsoon for various reasons. So, but we have to kind of plan for different kinds of uncertainties. Some models will predict the rainfall is going to increase enormously. Others will predict that orographic effect. The Japanese model predicts that it's going to decrease, and so on and so forth. So this is something on which we have to tread a little carefully, not take either side completely. So,
I think
Rohini, you would like
to develop more resilience. We don't know what's coming, but to actually work on that. And remember, there's a chance that we'll have to face disasters here, whether it's from erosion, landslides, flooding, and to be a little better prepared, to have some NGOs looking at it together with the government, and philanthropy can step in to say, if something happens, I promise that I will be there to help immediately. We need to build a trust network in advance, not after the disaster happens, but before.
No, excellent. I think we'll end on that note that adaptation is actually the need of the hour, especially for the global south in the whole climate change discourse. And this is something that we need to plan for. Thank you. Thank you very much. You had one.
Sorry to take extra time. I just want to make 2 points that what we are doing already and where we want help. I wanted to be clear so that anybody interested can reach out to us, and we are here to looking forward to collaborate. Number one, what we're trying to do here with again in close cooperation with and support from Keystone Foundation, we've started this green school concept. Basically, we are targeting 6th standard to 8th standard students going to government schools, where we are introducing them to place-based education. What we are trying to do here is, I've studied in CBSE board. I've never come across the word Shola ecosystem all my life until I came here to Nilgiris. It's a sad part. So most of the curriculum do not cover local geography or local ecology. So what we are trying to introduce to children, I use this phrase again and again. Most of you might have already heard this from me, because I gave up on the adults and they don't want to change their ways. We want to catch the children. And as I was so happy to see the Roots and Shoots video which was played here, that's exactly what we are trying to do. Though I was happy that this was my initiative, Madam Jane Goodall has done it before I was born. So that is something which we are trying to do, where we are educating the children. First, we are introducing them to the terms like sustainability, ecology, things like that. And then they will be learning about their own district, their own home, how Nilgiris is special, why is it so delicate, and what are the things they have to do, what are the issues the environment is facing here, and what are the good practices they can adopt so that they can become role models and take stewardship. That is, they own the initiative. So it won't be imposed anymore. It is something they would lead in future. So we're doing this. Initially, we started for 50 schools. We have around 400 schools. So we'll be very happy if anybody's interested to collaborate with us. We will expand it, and we're doing it in a very scientific way. So first, we've started with a preliminary survey by an exam. So all these children who are taking part will be doing a pre-assessment test, and after 3 months of this education and with few field trips, we would be taking them to the different ecosystems for Mudumalai forest, the sholas, grasslands, etc., and show them how it is. And then again, after finishing the course, they'll be writing an exam. So we will show the results on how they improved in understanding of their local environment. So we would request any volunteers, anybody who is wishing to spend some of the time teaching these kids. We have everything ready. We have the pedagogy, everything planned out. We have weekly lesson plans. You have to just go teach the kids. Anybody interested, we would definitely take you on board. But please don't ask me for logistics and things like that. That you have to manage. We'll tell you which school. If you can go manage and teach the kids, that is great. Thank you. And this is one thing. And the second thing which we are going to launch shortly, it is being on the development phase, is with the Forest Department. DFO, my colleague Mr. Gautam is here. We are going to GIS map using the GIS all the invasive species in Nilgiris, not just the famous lantana, but we have many other serious threats that has been brought to us in a very heartwarming way. It was the Todas who brought to my knowledge about Cestrum. The yellow flowers you're seeing on the road, all across the road, that is not a native species. Again, it is eating away into the sholas. So we are going to map these, and the Forest Department can use these to plan restoration activities, like which to go first or what to go first. So that is something we are doing.
Ma'am, but please look at old species which are thriving on these invasives also, okay?
Yes, yes.
Adjusting and adapting to the invasives also.
Right. Yes, ma'am. This is only mapping. We are just mapping which areas is the spread high and low to take any further activities. And last but not the least, we are also coming up with one of a kind CSR portal for the Nilgiris district. We are yet to finalize on the name of this. So basically, this portal will have all the shelf of works that are needed across all the 53 or 54 departments we have. Be it as small thing as, wanting of books in libraries, to some renovation of classrooms or hostels or anything, even asking for a geyser in a hostel, all of these kind of shelf of works we'll be putting up. Anybody who is interested can contribute in two ways. One, they can take up the project by themselves and finish it. No money needs to be transferred to any of the government departments. You can directly take it up, and all the NOCs will be given online on the portal itself, so that you don't need to move across departments asking for permissions to do this kind of philanthropical work. And the second part, if you don't have resources to hire people locally, that we will implement and give it to you, and that will be taken care by the district collector himself or herself. And we will give you the before after during photos as well, along with completion of work. And number 3, we are also opening up a crowdsourcing thing, which some of the NGOs, I used to do it for donating books to libraries. So there's this progress bar, which will show you it's 50% we've received. So those people who do not or have resources or not interested to take up big infrastructure projects can just contribute to this crowdsourcing thing, through which we can give books or geysers or uniforms or blazers, anything to the students or any other departments as well. So these are the 3 things we are doing, and we would require all your support.
It's just that I told you I fell in love with the Nilgiris, and I've been friends with Sandesh Kadur for more than 20 years. And we were talking and saying, are there good films about this beautiful place that we are in love with? And we couldn't find anything good. So we said, we'll make one. And Sandesh, I know what a great filmmaking house they are. The whole Fellis team is so talented. So I decided to support the making of this film and got very deeply involved in it. Learned much more about this wonderful place in which you live and we visit. And luckily for us, the documentary has gone national. It has been running for 5 weeks in theaters. We've already won 5 international awards. And it is inspiring a lot of my friends to make more films on nature in India.
So the overall intention is first to, all of us, as you might have heard today, we're discussing about restoration, right? So the restoration is not an easy thing. It involves a lot of science. There's a lot of knowledge behind it. It's not just you remove one plant and you plant some other in place of that. And it also, on a other aspect of it, is everybody here speaks about planting sholas or planting sholas everywhere, but there's a lot of science that goes behind where these sholas actually thrive. You have to do all that kind of study and then do the plantation. So similarly, the idea about mapping this invasive species is just for us to know how do we do better restoration efforts. It's not just planting, like remove all lantana, as ma'am said. It's impossible, or removing everything is impossible, and you can't replace all of that again with something else. That's not going to happen. And removal of these species is also not easy at all. It is not like one time you remove it, that it's not going to come again. It almost takes 5 cycles to remove the lantana completely from a place. So it's like you uproot, it comes again, you uproot, it comes again. So there is a lot of science and effort that goes into doing all of this. So the GIS mapping is to give us an idea to plan better and use our resources better, and to see which doing that in which area will give us the best results. It's not just for namesake restoration, but also to see the restoration efforts does not mean only like replanting, but also to see what kind of impact it has on the other lives around it. It is not just people who are living. There's so many animals that thrive in these forests. So if there's some kind of food shortage for the animals because, they can't eat lantana or something. So we have to take all of these factors. We have to develop a score, like a scoring system on which part would require our efforts. So that is the overall larger plan. Thank you. Hi. So I know what you're mentioning. I know there's a lot of bears going around in your school. We keep trying to move them out, but the forest department, DFO sir, is here. They're actively trying to do that. But what is on the lighter side, because there's a session that is going to come up right after this on the man-animal interactions altogether. You know what? We understood that the bears are nowadays being attracted to oil. So generally we see, because apparently it helps in digestion for the bears. I don't know. This is what Forest Department has informed me, that that's why they want to go get the oil, and not just your school. It is in fact very scary, because many a times in all the Anganwadi centers and the schools where we have midday meal, because we provide lunch to children who come, we have our stores where the provisions are kept. So it goes there, breaks the window, even an iron grill window, opens it, goes inside, just drinks the oil from the oil packet. It doesn't touch any other food and leaves the packet there and goes back. Yes, so they have now unfortunately got used to oil. So the moment we got to know about Lawrence School, the first thing I've informed your headmaster, principal, is please see that there's no oil stored anywhere. But yeah, that is the thing. So we will see that no untoward incidents happen, and we'll try our best, and you'll learn more in the coming sessions.
Yeah, I think it's a very important thing. When the bear entered my house, I had to do a lot of things to prevent the next bear attack. We should be very scared of bears, and yet we know that they have as much right to be around as you and I do. So sensible precautions can be taken. Every child in your school needs to know how bears behave. And obviously don't roam around at night. Obviously don't go around alone. There are ways to prevent this conflict. But I agree that you will need a little more help and work. But thanks for raising it, and thanks for not saying, send away all the bears. We can't do that either. We have to learn to coexist. Thank you.